Monday at 9:00 a.m. Hill fruits should have been fruit and checklists. Instead, the audit team arrived with a camera crew, smiling like it was harmless. James held the printed boundary email. The unopened envelope sat between him and Diep like a stone. A tense exchange cracked the kitchen, long enough for little Nye to slip outside, chasing an orange toward the gate. A delivery van swung in. Gravel sprayed. The camera kept rolling as James sprinted, caught her by the waist, and yanked her back from the bumper. How would she protect the children and still keep the contract? It started the morning after that quiet dinner. The kitchen light came on soft and steady. The unopened envelope still sat on the table, sealed and heavy, like a worry that had learned to stay quiet. Ms. Lee to Diep saw it first, because mothers notice what a family tries to step around. Little Nye noticed only the fruit bowl. She climbed onto a chair and demanded, "More!" Anna shuffled in with her marker case and asked, "Can Anna draw happy things today?" "Yes," Ms. Diep told her, "only happy things." James stood at the counter with his laptop open, coffee untouched. CEO again, yet still the same father in the same kitchen. He looked up. Today, the machine gets built. Ms. Diep exhaled once. How? James turned the screen toward her. A plain header. Hill Fruits, contract execution, 30 days. Supply, quality plus. Cold chain, paper plus. Payment. Then one final word at the bottom. Boundaries. Hill Fruits opened like normal, gate unlocked, shop light on, because routine kept fear from taking the wheel. Luan was already there. So Luan runs the front today, James told him. Luan blinked, then nodded like he understood the weight. Okay, Luan can do that. Mr. Hung stopped by, glanced at the extra stacks of empty crates, and spoke quietly. Big work is coming. Eat. Don't let success make you sick. Then he left, as if the message was complete. In the back room, James drew 3 circles on a whiteboard. Farms, pack house, delivery. This triangle does not break, he said. If one corner fails, everything fails. Ms. Diep nodded. The shop has always been careful. Careful is not enough at this volume, James replied. This is an operations launch. Then James asked the question that protected the household first. What is true capacity without burning Ms. Diep out? Not enough with only Ms. Diep and Luan, Ms. Diep admitted. So good, James said. Partners carry the extra weight, not Ms. Diep. They called only growers Hill Fruits already trusted, people with consistent cycles and clean habits. James set standards on speaker. Testing, documented rejects, no surprises. Ms. Diep chose who deserved the call because she remembered who had character before there was money. By late morning, Ms. Diep wrote the rules on the board. Grading, sweetness targets, ripeness windows, reject criteria, pack specs, and temperature limits. James studied the list like it was a safety rail. That is what they pay for, he said. Not a story, this! Then the cold chain question arrived, blunt and practical. Consistency demanded temperature logs, not hope. James secured a short-term cold storage rental in the city with overnight access and recorded temperature history. If a cold room cannot be bought yet, he told Ms. Diep, One gets rented, step by step. Ms. Diep's shoulders loosened. So the shop stays simple. The shop stays the heart, James said. The cold room becomes the muscle. At noon, Ms. Diep went home to feed the children, because contracts did not cook rice. Nye ate and demanded fruit again. Anna drew quietly at the table, small hands busy, house calm. James came home mid-lunch with the look of a man who had already met resistance on a call. Procurement, he said, before Ms. Diep even asked. They offered net 45. That breaks cash flow, Ms. Diep replied. It will not happen, James said. Net 15 and staged deposits for the first 60 days. Penalty protection if pickups get delayed. Will they accept? Ms. Diep asked. They can, James answered, because it prevents failure. That afternoon, the kitchen table became a command post. Binder open, notes tight. James wrote the deal memo in plain language. Deposit for rollout month 1. Net 15 after pickup confirmation. Chargebacks only for objective quality failures. No access to children, home, or private spaces. Site visit only at the pack house. Pre-approved filming zones. Faces optional. Those lines were proof that the contract would not own the family. On the video call, brand and procurement appeared together. The marketing lead smiled brightly. We are excited to tell your story. James redirected without hostility. Hill Fruits is here to deliver consistent fruit. Story is optional. But consumers love faces, she pressed. Ms. Diep stayed steady. Faces are not a product. No children, no home. James added, gentle and final, real families protect children. Procurement cleared his throat. Understood. A supplier audit is needed next week. Good, James said. Checklist audit, document findings, corrective actions, no intimidation, partnership, not power. A pause, then a quieter reply. Understood. When the call ended, Ms. Diep realized her hands were shaking. James moved his chair closer until his knee touched hers, steady and present. Ms. Diep holds the product, he reminded her. James holds the room. That night, the children were fed, bathed, and read a bedtime story. The unopened envelope still waited on the table, untouched. Not tonight? Ms. Diep asked softly. Not tonight, James said. Tonight is what can be controlled. Then Ms. Diep's phone buzzed. A calendar invite from corporate filled the screen. Supplier audit plus brand B-roll shoot requested. Monday, 9:00 a.m. James stared at the camera icon, then looked at Ms. Diep. They combined it, he said quietly. Audit and cameras. Ms. Diep swallowed. Pack house only. That was the boundary. James nodded, already reaching for the laptop. Then the boundary goes in writing. Monday was coming fast, and it was coming with lenses. If a contract brings cameras toward a family's door, which boundary should never move? Monday arrived quiet and gray. James was dressed before the children stirred, not in a suit, just a clean button-down that said, work. Ms. Lee Diep packed snacks and wipes out of habit. because contracts did not cancel childhood. Luan opened the gate early, and Mr. Hung dropped off steamed buns like a small shield against a long day. At 8:40, James forwarded the boundary email again, attached the contract memo, and printed 3 copies. Paper made promises harder to twist. By 8:55, the packhouse yard was ready. Stacked crates, a clean grading table, and temperature logs clipped to a board. Nothing fancy, just discipline. A black van rolled in, then a white vehicle with a small camera logo. The audit team stepped out with clipboards. Behind them came 2 camera operators, lenses already hunting for family moments. The marketing lead smiled too brightly. "Morning. Could we get the kids waving at the gate? Just quick B-roll." James lifted the printed boundary page. Packhouse only. No children, no home. That was accepted. "It's harmless," she insisted. "It is access," James replied, calm as a locked door. "And it stays in the agreed zones." Procurement glanced at the paper and nodded. "We'll follow the terms." The marketing lead's smile thinned. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." Ms. Diep answered steadily. "It is being made safer than it used to be." For a moment, the yard held its breath. Then Nye's small voice chirped, proud and loud. "Orange!" She had slipped out from behind Luan's leg, clutching her toy orange and a real tangerine like she was bringing supplies. She giggled and toddled toward the open lane, drawn by the shine of metal and movement. Ms. Diep's heart dropped. "Baby, stop!" A delivery van turned in. Late, too fast, gravel crunching. James moved first. 3 strides, one arm like a seatbelt. His hand found Nye's waist and pulled her back hard enough that his shoulder bumped a crate stack. The van braked with a sharp squeal and stopped inches from where Nye's shoes had been. For one breath, no one spoke. Then Nye cried, startled more than hurt, face pressed into James's chest. James did not scold her. He held her, voice low and steady. "You are safe. Daddy has you." Ms. Diep's knees went soft with relief as she smoothed Nye's hair. "No more running near the gate, sweetheart." No more. One camera operator lowered his lens. The marketing lead's smile disappeared. Procurement stared at the near miss, then at the boundary page still in James's hand. Something changed in his face. "This is why," James said quietly. "Boundaries are protection, not attitude." Procurement swallowed. Understood. James placed Nye into Ms. Diep's arms. Luan closed and latched the gate. Mr. Hung, standing a few steps back, nodded once. An older man's quiet way of saying the right thing had been done. The audit finally became what it should have been. Measurable work. Ms. Diep demonstrated grading and reject rules with calm hands. James showed cold chain proof, rental agreement, temperature logs, and transport targets. Questions came, and answers arrived with documents, not feelings. Near noon, the procurement director asked James to step aside by the loading bay. "We're separating audit from filming," he said. "Brand gets fruit footage only. Product, hands, signage, no family." The marketing lead protested, "We need faces." Procurement turned to her. No, we need compliance and delivery. The supplier terms are clear. James's shoulders eased a fraction. Thank you. And payment, procurement added, quieter now. Net 15 with staged deposits for the first 60 days is approved. Finance will send the amendment today. Ms. Diep felt fear loosen its grip, not because money was the prize, but because stability meant fewer nights awake. By mid-afternoon, the camera crew had packed up. The yard returned to its honest rhythm. Crates, checklists, and a closed gate. Before heading home, Mr. Hung stopped at the shop counter where Luan was cleaning stickers off his fingers. Saturday rule still stands, Mr. Hung said, as if it mattered as much as any contract. Work hard, then sit down and eat like a family. Luan laughed softly. Luan will enforce it. James looked at Ms. Diep, and she saw it. The machine could grow, but the home would stay human. That evening, the kitchen light warmed the table again. James placed a new envelope down. Corporate letterhead, approval stamp, the payment amendment inside. Boundaries acknowledged in writing. Then James finally picked up the old envelope. Ms. Diep watched without speaking. Inside was a short letter from James's father. No grand apology, just a sober admission. Control had been mistaken for love, and the children would not be approached without invitation. A signed document followed. Limited warehouse access transferred to James, enough to expand cold storage without debt. Miss Diep's eyes stung. Not because the past was erased, but because it stopped reaching for the present. James folded the letter carefully. Safety first, he said, then work. That night, Anna taped her Hill Fruits Big drawing on the fridge. Nye fell asleep clutching her toy orange, the fright already fading into the soft resilience of childhood. Before bed, James stepped outside and clicked on the porch light over the gate. It glowed steady and plain, like a promise that could be kept. And the next morning, Hill Fruits opened again. Same chalkboard, same friendly light. Only now, the contract had rails, the family had boundaries, and fear had somewhere safe to set itself down. If viewers have ever held a hard boundary for a child's safety, what words helped most?